Everybody. It's such a great release week. So many great books to review. Again, this is a cautionary tale to definitely watch the FOC show that happens on Fridays so that you have 3 weeks in advance to add all of those super hot books or the ones we think might be to your pull lists, because you might end up in situations where local comic shop had not any orders for those books in advance, so they might not have them. So pay attention to that show, and then pay attention to this show so you know what to pick up off the shelves for this week. We'll get to reviewing right after this. Everybody, it is a wonderful week of comic books as always. Just more absolute gems, and the Marvel Universe is continuing on past its Imperial storylines. Sorry, I'm trying to be punny and I don't know if I'm getting there, but there is so many good opportunities to start in on something new this week with some new indies, and a good place to jump into Marvel titles. And also 2 titles for DC that you guys might not be thinking about reading, but are perfect jump on points because they've got some big story arc starts. So let's get after talking about what is awesome this week. Thinking of really awesome things. All right, let's go back into like our time memories, like we're, the Doctor himself in the TARDIS. It has been a really long time since there's been something like a weekly or monthly book, like printed book, talking about comic books. And sometimes their values, and sometimes just kind of what people are looking forward to. What's the big deal for those things? So I will tell you that it used to be, when I first started in comic books when I had my first physical store in 1995, it used to be the thing that came in and everyone came right away to the comic book shop to get was a Wizard, because that is the only way we knew how to value comic books other than Overstreet. So Overstreet was great for like older books, but for the new hot books, it was really hard because there weren't a lot of stores reporting to Overstreet any modern comic book pricing. So you had to wait for the Wizard, which was like a once in a month book, which was great. But in between those times, you just had to kind of guess at what values were for those new hot books. Like now, we know before even a book releases for things like Dork or the other hot books that have come out in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We would have never known that it was a $30 book before it actually released, except for this. The internet wasn't a usable thing until like 1998 when people started really using it to communicate about such things. So it happens a lot in the industry that people say, hey, it would be awesome if we had video shows that talked about weekly reviews or FOC things or interviewed creators. That's how you get the experience, which is what you're watching now. And it's also how you get things like Comics the Magazine. Comics the Magazine. So this is never going to be as thick as what the traditional Wizard magazine was, which was like a square bound, really thick baby. But this one will not leave you feeling like you didn't get that kind of volume of super awesome news. This is a ton of stuff in it, and it is totally worth the $2.99 price point. I could have spent probably an hour and a half pouring over it. There's that much stuff in there to read and think about, but I just had to skim it, which is why it's called Minute To Skim It, right? So the really cool thing that the book starts out with is this really nice like interview with the creative teams behind Absolute Batman, talking about like the kind of like the planning stages. How long has it been planned? And I did not realize that this universe had a hint about it in the planning stages of when they were thinking about the metal universe, when it started at that part. So it's really neat to see them talk about Absolute Batman's origin stuff, and also I think they were talking about Absolute Catwoman, like how she got thought through. So that's really cool. And then it also has this really awesome history of the printed magazine for comic books. And it has this just incredible bar graph that shows when each of them came to be, how long they lasted in comparison to the other ones. And they have like, as it's cool because Jim Rugg put all of that information together, which is a wonderful person to be doing all that historical stuff. And it does mad props to its comics KFAB that they had for a couple of years as a video magazine. So this is a really great collaborative effort. You will feel what I felt was like, it's very clear that there are also comic book companies collaborating in this to make sure that they have a bunch of information to give to us that is very timely, so that we can have enough time to make action. Like they have like 2 or 3 pages of, here's our recommended books, either coming out, like a lot of the stuff is timely. It's stuff that's coming out this week. And it is very much pointing back to that FOC kind of show where we were like, this is what we told you. And some of it is, they say out loud that these are very much not without being affected by, our friends. So they are, you can tell, like there's some recommendations that are in there that they're saying that there are people they've interviewed, that they've had on their shows, that they know personally, and that they believe in their work. So, and they're upfront about it, right? Just because someone knows a creator and recommends their books doesn't mean that they're not right about what the book is and how good it's going to be. So, and they're going to save comics. Well, I think that didn't Comics Beat in the last couple of days, I feel like, had a question that they put out that was essentially, do we need still a top comic list, like that says what the top sellers are in comic books, or how many units were sold, or those kinds of things. They used to make those very available to us. Do we care about those things? And it turns out, yes, we do. So you're going to start seeing a lot of this because Brian Garside is like really deep into the data part of what happens in comic books. And if you've ever watched their shows, Data Bros, they do a whole bunch of putting together all the data that they can from Manage Comics and from Comic Shop Assistant. Those are the two that they have access to that are dedicated POSs, or point of sale systems for comic book stores. And they take all that information and they put it into in such a way that is, they can't point back to specific stores. So it's very much, it protects the data from where it came from, but just uses the information to try to tell us what, for those dedicated stores using that those POS systems, what they're selling. And although it's not a huge bunch of stores, when you think about that, there are on the rolls, there are 2,500 to 3,000 comic book stores. Now, how many of those are just people that are buying for themselves and their little friend buying groups, as opposed to like physical stores? I can't tell you. I don't know how many of those actually qualify as actual physical stores, but we'll say that there are at least 2,000 real physical stores in the world. And it, as a percentage, doesn't do a bad job for what it actually pulls. So yeah, so we've got Jay's putting on there all these really good information about when you should be able to actually see those shows. If you want to know inside of the industry itself, this Comic Industry Insiders has a great many people that work in the industry that tell you how it works. So it's not a mystery to you anymore. So when we say free comic book day, but we tell you it's not free comic book day for stores, then you can understand why. Because we pay 25 to 30 cents each book that we're giving away. So they're not free to us, But we love you, so we like buying them so that you can have something cool to read on that day as we celebrate the love of comics and other cool things, all the behind the scenes things that may make your mind numb for all the numbers get thrown. But if you're a number nerd or just like comic book information, it is totally the right thing. Yes, and support your local comic shop because they are what I call your third place, hopefully, where you go to chill out after work or on your off days and just be all the nerd you can be and feel in a safe place. That's what it's for. All right. That's enough about this. If you love and want to support physical copies of things about comic books and not just always talking heads, or if you want to have stuff that actually supports all that stuff, definitely put on your pull box list Comics the Magazine. It's the best $3 you will spend this week. Quite honestly, it will make you very happy. All right, Mark Spears Monsters. Holy cow. I hope that you guys are reading these books and not just collecting them for the covers, although the covers are dope. The storyline has been crazy. So this one focuses in on the Hatter, who has been captured, ? And or given himself up to the police. And he's being interrogated, in which he talks a whole bunch of nonsense, as you would expect the Mad Hatter to do. But he kind of lets it drop. Yes, I have been taking hearts, although some of them, the people might have already been dead. But the connection is, he kind of like puts it in as a sideline. The name Alice. He only is attracted to do that for people that are Alice's. Now, why? I don't know. But it also talks about who is the Slayer, what they're doing. You find out there are have been different Slayers through time. He talks about them having different colored eyes, and that's how he tells them apart. He gets very upset when he finds out what kind of eyes this new Slayer that's been walking around has, because he's like, that's not good. And he tells some super secret stuff about Drac, which is awesome. That's my favorite character. And this universe is pretty big and wide. So it is not just like these are monsters running around. There are really cool characters like him. There's this clown character that shows up in the last part of the pages. You've probably seen on covers. So truly, if you've seen a monster on a cover ever, they are part of this universe. They're not just like, he's not just making covers for fun. They are really neat things that have important parts to play in the overall storyline that's being built up in these books. And they're really, really cool. And I'm excited because on the very back of the book, I think this week they have, I think Zero had the clown. I think that might be true. But there's another standalone story, I think. I don't know that it's tied to anything, but this is something I've been excited about for a while. It's a new character and storylines. If you want to add it to your pull boxes, you might want to. Every legend has a beginning. This one begins at midnight. After he dies, Midnight Man. So that looks really cool. So then I'll have 3 series, I think, running right now, which is perfect amount for me. I don't ever get tired of reading them. So think about adding Keen Spot. Oh, I'm talking about Keen Spot titles before we move away from Keen Spot. Last week, there was a Pooh Bear book that they released by a good friend of our show, who was previously you know him from doing his work on Glopple. This is Matt Cole. And according to him, it has been a runaway hit and sold out. So if you have a copy, you should hold on to that. And that every issue of that is a standalone story. And I think that he had some misunderstanding that some people had thought that the book he was doing, the Pooh Bear book, was somehow like scary or a horror thing or whatever, but it's totally all family friendly goodies that you should read, and it'll make you feel really happy and really fun art. And there's a bunch of different artists doing covers. I did not know that. We ordered all a cover and just got all the different little cards because they came with cards. And I did not realize there were a bunch of other cover artists, and I know who the cover artists are for the next books. So you should definitely look at that and think about adding that to your polls. All right, X-Men United. This is an interesting excursus. This one does touch right off of all of the books that have been running for X-Men and the Krakoa era. This is the X-Men under the psychic tutelage of the White Queen, which you're like right away, wait a daggum minute. Why are we letting this person be in charge? Like the start of this book is literally her sending everybody a psychic invitation to walk through a door. And through the door is the school that she's created. It's a complete, only in their head school. And the idea is that no one could possibly burn down the school or break the school or hurt anybody in the school because from the exterior, because it's all like psychically made, right? But there's a lot of complexities here. As you know, even if you have a totally built universe where no one can get in it, you still have the people in it. So if you don't trust everybody that's in it, then you have problems. The first person that shows very much that they do not trust what's going on is Scott. Scott almost literally shows up and walks away. And he says, this is not for me. I don't like it. Do you mean the school that blows up every year? Yeah, Negasonic Teenage Warhead. And to that end, wait till the last page. This is a great jump-in point for a storyline that's been like, will they ever be able to find a safe place to be? That, you know, wherever they are, wherever they go, there they are, I guess is the problem. Xavier is rich, so he got it. And then this one, I did not think I was going to like at all, because the Imperial storyline, I totally got it. I understood what the whole thing was. It was like this double cross, whatever, that you had different people like the Immortals, Inhumans, and a bunch of other spacefaring people, all like framing Wakanda for stuff that they didn't do. When they found out at the end of that big story, the Imperium story, was that pretty much you have the Inhumans led by Maximus the Mad, kind of being the reason for it. Then you end up with Maximus being in charge. It doesn't make any sense that they didn't just be like, hey, we're just going to strafing run you off the planet. But that's not what happened. So this is a group that has been formed. It looks by Maximus with real purpose. There's a much bigger threat that is out there. What you find out is that a Cosmic Ghost Rider there, at some point in some of the other storylines that have recently happened, he has killed a lot of these characters, but according to him, and it's borne out in the storyline, that if he kills them, he can always bring them back. Boop, no big deal. But if something else kills them, out of luck. So this book takes a lot of time kind of like sussing out how each of these characters interacts with each other. You don't see her on the cover there. Oh, maybe she's there. You got Carol, who's a major player. Gamora's a major player. You've got Brawl, who is Amadeus Cho, who basically gets relegated to Pet Hulk. They actually call him Pet Hulk in this, but he's like, haha, that's funny. But a lot of good chit chat. A lot of it is in little blocks that are like their private channels. So I think it's supposed to be only they're thinking it. So anyway, good start for the space. Like we've got the whole spacefaring part of the Marvel Universe. This is a good team build up, because actually even the ones you've never probably heard of before, or maybe you just haven't seen, there was at least one or two that I didn't know who they were. I know enough about them now to be like, oh, okay, I see how they're fitting in here. So a good jumping on point. If you didn't read any of the Imperium storylines, it's fine. I just told you everything you need to know. Dork, number 2. Okay. I don't know if you guys have heard of this crazy book called Dork, but I think it set the world on fire. It is the very first of when we're talking about this like new kind of like trend of there being one gigantically hot book for a week, which has already been sold out at distribution like 3 weeks between the actual before it actually gets released. No one could have added any copies for it, and it's been hotter than snot and is already like worth a bunch of money on the secondary market. That's important and all, but the cool thing about this book is specifically is that yes, it started the trend, but I see the reason why it actually is a really good book. Some of them I'm just like going, you guys are just trying to guess at what the smallest print run book is and jumping on it without any real reason to decide whether you're going to like it. But this one, you really will. So there's a reason why you see Scotty Young get tied to talking about it a lot, because it is kind of that storyline or that look in the art style. But it's a really fun story. When we read the first issue, the main character here, whose name really is a dork, but that's what he's been called by everyone else, is in kind of a neutral zone of his worlds. But he is born of a light creature and a dark creature, and there's light and dark parts of this place. And so because he comes from both worlds, they're trying to kill him. The crazy thing is that he also has, you can kind of see him there, he has this little shield with an eyeball on it who can talk, and he's a good smack talker. And in the last issue, there was a chicken that was killed somehow, and I can't remember how, but he's been carrying around the chicken's body, and then the chicken's head can talk to him, and it's a ghost. So there's a ghost chicken head, and a talking shield that he has walking around with. And in this part of the tale, he's kind of like climbing up a like a cliff, trying to get away, like trying to find a way to get out of like the danger zone that he's in. And when he gets to the top of the cliff, all of the beings up there are already dead. Like they've been, looks like they were gotten to, but they were also kind of waiting in a wait for him. So this one, the big twisty thing is this crazy creatures that if they stabify you, then they take away part of your life or time. That's kind of a cool idea. There's so much fun smack talking. If you were a fan of all the nonsense that Peter Parker says while he's Spider-Man, smack talking funness, you will probably laugh out loud many times during this issue. And this is a backup reminder. Like, if you want to read this book, you will need to add it to your pull box, because it's been that popular that like the second print of number 1, it was sold out at distribution before I knew they were offering it. So there's no way for me to get it. It was already done. The shield is a pot stirrer. Yes, he is a pot stirrer. I didn't even think about calling it that. Yes, pot stirrer extraordinaire. He is super fun. I want to know the origin story of that thing, because he's half the fun. Barlord sometimes it's because they want to have freedom and choice. I do have a lot of people tell me I don't want to start a pull box because then I'm like married to that title, and I say it's not true. And I said you have to buy the ones that we order for you, but if you just you're like, okay, I read number 1 and 2 and I didn't like it, we'll take it off. You're gonna get stuck buying number 3, but after that you're free as a bird. But some people just get too nervous about, it's like they're commitment phobes about comic books. Sometimes it's monetary, yeah. If you have a ton on your pull list, it can get away from you very quickly. And a lot of people do want to support their local comic shop, but not hurt them by saying I can't buy that stuff because this week I went over, or I need to pay my car bill instead, because you need to pay your car bill, and we totally understand that. So that is why sometimes people just don't have it in them to do it, but they get caught up in the like, I got it. This was a good start of a storyline. So this takes place in the same universe as The Quiet Place, the movie, but this is not a place we've ever seen before in the movie thing. So it's like all the movies, we've never seen this place. This place is called Pearl City, I think, if I got that right. And this is a situation in which the people, it's kind of like an island when there's flooding, and when there's not flooding, it kind of connects to the mainland. But so right now they haven't had the creatures come onto the land, but they know that they exist. And the main character here comes in front of the city council or people that are in charge. It says basically, we know that these guys are coming. If we blow up all of the bridges connecting us to the land, then we will be safe because we know that those things cannot be exposed to water. That all sounds super smart, but you know what's going to happen because people as groups are dumb. So instead they get real, no, my kid's still at college and they need to be able to get back on the island, so we can't do that. How will they get here? Anyway, it's the thinking of themselves instead of the greater good, and they don't really, they're like, who are you? You're just a guy who works here. You're not a boss. So yeah, terrifying. It's like all good movies when you're like, if they would just talk to each other, they could solve this in 30 seconds, but no. Hey, Corey. I also did not think I would enjoy this one as much as I did, but I have spent some time in Portland. So if you've ever watched Portlandia or any of those shows that are set in Portland, you probably know enough about Portland to enjoy this because it has a lot of regions specific mentions. So there are multiple stories in the book all about Godzilla showing up, including the middle one, which is so funny. It's two people that they're just on an adventure because they want to name what is the most Portland-like hot dog. And so they're just kind of like having that whole discussion while Godzilla's destroying the city behind them. They just totally don't recognize it until it becomes important in the middle of the story. And it's just so funny and very, very interesting look at Portland. But it mentions lots of places, maybe not by specifics, because it does talk about him destroying this place and that place, but he's like, oh, he's heading for the bookstore. Well, you know what bookstore they're talking about because Portland is very famous for one specific bookstore. So great fun. It is three or four really fun Godzilla ones, Godzilla stories, a bunch of different art styles too. So every story's got a different art style, and I really like the art styles in the book. And the next one in the list of them that you kind of see the cover for at the very end of the book is Godzilla versus Texas, because they couldn't just pick one city in Texas, I guess. They had to do the whole state. He does not stand a chance, by the way, because we all have pews. So that'll be interesting to see if that's how we're portrayed. Oh, perfect. Okay. We win this one? Yeah, we will. I sure hope so. I mean, I don't know how you can do that because Godzilla is supposed to win all of them, but there's got to be a way that they can have the Texans win, right? Because we don't know how to quit. All right. The Exorcism at Buckingham Palace. Same story creative group, I think, is The Exorcism at 1600 Penn, which I did not read the very end of it, so I can't remember. I don't know how the series ends, but it was really, really good. This one starts out with a bang also, because I read the other one's first issue, and I read this one's first issue. I'm going to have to try to figure out how to make sure to read the rest of them, because I really love this. So, when you talk about exorcisms, right, you're always thinking about ghosts or demons or those kinds of things. Well, this is kind of a different feel. You're not really sure about whether it's supernatural or just a physical battle. This follows the king, who his family appears to have been lost at sea. So his nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters, who were supposed to be next on the throne. And very quickly, he says, well, okay, we have to find the next person in succession. And he announces who that is. And unfortunately, this young man has not ever thought he was ever going to be in line. So, and he also has been having these huge struggles with substance abuse. So for him, his demon is substance abuse. And that's going to fit into the storyline exactly. You find out why the king is in a hurry to name a successor. But we don't know what has happened to the family, because it does start the book on the boat, and it does seem like there's something supernatural happening instead of like a conspiracy where someone tried to kill the family on purpose. It seems very, very much more they talk about there being a curse for the family. So different artist and colorist, but same writer. Okay. Yeah, the writer is amazing. I got to meet a lot of the people that are part of the channel got to meet her at Comics Pro, and she is stunningly gorgeous. I will just say that. And a redhead. Fellow redheads, you know. Okay, here's what I was talking about at the very top of the show, where I was talking about there was going to be some books this week that were titles that you may not have been reading, but you might want to jump in just because of where the storyline is headed. It's a perfect jump in point for these. So this has been, we're at Supergirl 11. This one refers back to an earlier Supergirl episode or issue. But this one, Supergirl shows up and realizes that she needs to go into Kandor, which I did not realize that to go into Kandor, they have to wear a ring, because as she says, this is tied directly to the end of DCKO, that Superman has disappeared. They don't know where Superman is. She just knows that she's responsible for helping them because there's something damaged or something about the city. And so she has to, when they go in there, they shrink in to be the right size to fit in this bottle city of Kandor, but she has to have the ring, and it's like a sun ring or something. It has a cool name, but so that the sun affects her the same way, or maybe there's no sun in the bell. But anyway, she shows up there and then finds out right away that everything is not going well in the city, and in more than just the normal way of like there's some weird creatures that are there that are very bizarre, and that people that she knows are there, but not behaving the way that they should. There's a relationship that's going on that is not a healthy relationship, I think. So, and at the very end, you have characters be alluded to and show up, and I think that's where you see the Reign of Superboys storyline pop in, although it's not super clear. They get to be seen. Like, this is more clear than you actually see them in the book. They're just kind of in shadow kind of thing. So, but the stuff that happens in the middle is the important part about this book. And that you can start, the storyline is called, what does that say? Hero of Kandor, yeah. And then it also starts this Reign of Superboy storyline. So, good place to jump in if you like any of the young people of the Superverse. And then here's the other one that you may have been maybe reading, Aquaman, because of its DCKO tie-ins, because it had a bunch of them, and I did do a lot of reviewing for those books. So here's a reminder. Other than the normal Atlantis, there was another underwater city, but it was set aside almost like a prison for now I'm going to forget her name. Aquaman's wife's mom. That is exactly the relationship, but I cannot remember her name. But for many, many issues, there's been this struggle where she wants to escape. She's definitely against Aquaman. But at the very end, this is something like, if you've not finished DCKO, I apologize, but you got to know this stuff. So close your ears if you don't want to know it. But at the end of DCKO, as part of Superman's victory before he disappears, he takes on all of the Omega energy, but he distributes it across all of our heroes who now have it. So they are now more powerful than they were before, which is a good idea, because if you're going to need to stand up against Darkseid, it makes more sense to have many hands to be doing that part. Yep, back issues for this book is worth hunting down. Definitely worth hunting down. So if you know both of those things, the this book actually starts out with like, you find out that there's a very young Arthur, and then a very old Arthur comes out of the water, and then the old Arthur takes the young Arthur, and there's some explanation for what is going on there. And then something else cool happens. So it all culminates in, not a spoiler thing for you, Aquaman becoming a much more central character and declaring himself Emperor Aquaman, which is what he needs to be able to unite all of the underwater kingdoms, because it's been all kinds of messy for a while. So Warlord, he knows what the power struggle has been. And now he wants to not only be controlling the seas, which is very important, but to have that extend farther. The reach needs to be farther, of course, because of the DCKO problem. No one can be sleeping on it, because then you have the dark side problem. All right, this one was pitched to me at Comics Pro, but I misunderstood what they said about it, and I apologize if I said anything incorrect about this story. It is such a lovely beginning. A Coke was his first thing. Such a lovely story. So these two guys here are married that are on the front cover. One, the blonde guy, is from society. He's he's used to being around rich people. And the other guy is more of a normal working class fellow, but they love each other. It's clear that is not a source of conflict between them at all. It's just a cuteness between them, right? And the blonde fellow gets asked to come and be part of the consideration of the security of a very important object that is being donated to a museum. Okay. And by way of being kind of like part of his group, his husband gets asked to try to break in and take it, right? It's kind of like a try to see where the weaknesses are in our system. And that seems to work just fine, and everything seems to be very secure. So and I'm going to tell you something that happens in the book, because it was the pitch that was given to me. So I think it's actually part of the solicit for this. So I'm not spoiling anything for you. Something happens in which they have to, I thought they did a body switch, but it's not what happens. They actually have to kind of change roles, because there's not a lot of people that know what they look like and what they do, I guess. So they actually are like, well, the best way for us to be able to find out what has happened is to switch roles. The guy who's a normal, like, working class looking guy, he's going to go and take place in society and see if he can suss out, because of he's had connections with bad guys before. So he can kind of like he notices that stuff more. And so it's kind of a fun changing of roles, heist fighting. I mean, right away, I think you're supposed to like start thinking that just anybody that's in their circle of influence might be not on the up and up. So I don't know. It's going to be kind of a mystery, heist, relationship, fun romp, as far as I can tell. It doesn't seem so serious as to be like, this is my pick for like things that people are going to be like, oh, I didn't put this on my pull list and I have regrets. So try this one out. This one's fun. All right, we're in the second issue of Awesome Books by Beating Hearts, which is the first or the lead out issue in the DC Vertigo line. And this one, I'm still trying to figure out, but you will have your heartstrings pulled. I think the first one also was a heartstring puller. But at the very end of the last issue, and again, close your ears if you don't want to know this, but at the last part of this first issue, in which all of the people, or most of the people that there are existing, are now zombies. So there's not very many like actual humans left. But you do see this kid in the front who has a little flower growing out of his head as a zombie, that he might not be just a mindless zombie guy at all. He might actually be able to think a little bit for himself, although he doesn't talk really. So in this issue, you get to see this whole story about this mom and daughter. The daughter's name is something really cute, like Bunny. I think it's something like Bunny. And you find out that the daughter was born during the zombie apocalypse, so it was a very dangerous thing. It's kind of like the Quiet Place where she had to give birth without making any noise. The dad was there to do the delivery, and you get to see what sacrifices were made to get away. And there is interactions between those people and their storyline and this kid. And this is really cool because the art style is really so wonderful and unique. It is just like it is on the front cover there. I don't think I can tell you any other art style that I can remember that's like it. So it's wonderful to view because it feels like art you would want to put on your wall, but you would never put on your wall because it's zombies eating brains and stuff. But anyway, it's just look all around the page because there's like every time you look at a page, there's like more stuff to see on the page. You know, those kinds of art. Like if you're looking at, I don't know, Liam Sharp art that's in Conan when he does all that really detailed page work. It's like that where you're just like, there's more and more and more to see and it makes your eyes happy. Okay, Absolute Green Lantern. This one introduces introduce the idea of Abensur. So you get to actually see how that kind of like leads out. There's a little bit of stuff that Jo says in this one, who's that main Green Lantern character, which she has a discussion again with her ex-wife about like, I don't know why you won't give up the ring because the ring was meant for me kind of the thing. And she's like, I can't give up the ring. You learn that it's like the ring is her. She can't let it go. I know, right? The colors. And then also there's a giant object that shows up at the very last of this book, in which we have always called it a something. But there is a character that shows up and tells us our translations have been wrong. What the real translation is that. So of course, they got to change everything for Absolute. And I was trying to think, do they resolve any other things in this one? Those are the two main big story arcs that happen in this book. It continues to hold my interest. I still don't like the main character, though, and I don't think you're supposed to. It looks a little like a bat symbol in the lantern logo. Ooh, I didn't even think about that. All right, an Absolute Batman. Man, if you're going to design a character that is usually really beautiful, like Poison Ivy has always been portrayed, and you wanted to really make sure that people understood that it wasn't that character, man, you would design the character we have here because the prettiest that she is in this book is on this cover, and the most times she just looks like a bunch of deformed plant parts and stuff because she is like biological and viral and animal and something else, I say. So when last we saw her, she was trying to break into Batman's suit, his cowl, in which she's saying, join me together. We can like integrate and you can become all these things too. And we can fight the bad guy that we're fighting. But also the way they're telling this storyline, which always are so clever, right? You guys have figured out they're super clever about it. So they're telling that story on some pages. So like you could have a page or two of that story, and then it'll be another story, which is about Bruce's mom, who you find out isn't just a normal mom. Because we know what happened to his dad, right? There was a terrorist attack that happened on the zoo. They just happened to be there, and he gets killed during that attack. It's in the middle of the day, those bright sun out, and it has nothing that looks like his original origin story at all. He still has a mom, everything's great. But you get to find out more about his mom in this. And there is something crazy that happens in this book. Well, there's more crazy stuff that happens in the book, just one thing. Yeah, you will not be disappointed in all of the crazy, great story arc pushing forward stuff that happens here. What else can I tell you? I can tell you that there are more characters introduced in the next couple of issues because you just kind of know from knowing things. that you will definitely want it. Also, if you haven't added Absolute Batman to your list by now, I cannot say any more how many reasons why you should actually be reading this series, even if you've never liked Batman ever in your entire life. Just imagine yourself, hey, did I like Jack Reacher or just Reacher? Sorry, I can't call him Jack. He'll tell you, no, it's just Reacher. If you like Reacher at all, or if you just watch War Machine, you will probably love the heck out of this book, because it's about big, brutish people being big and brutish, as big as they can be. Just psychologically awesome. Yeah, there is. Your eyes do travel around it, don't they? All right, and there are some great graphic novel opportunities this week, because we like talking about those also. This is kind of neat. So the Ends, which was the David and Maria Lapham storyline from Bad Idea, is on that cool, light, what I call newsprint stuff, which, by the way, don't call it cheap, because I think it's actually more expensive to print on that right now. So, but it's nice because it's lighter to carry around, which makes me very happy. So if you don't know what this is about, I'm going to do a really quick read on the back for you. In the summer of 1985, the quiet beach town of Oceanside becomes a battleground. Jennifer End and Angela Rodriguez are deeply, recklessly in love, but when Jennifer's skinhead brother Jack discovers their relationship, it becomes a spark that ignites a violent uprising. As neo-Nazis flood the streets and our police are overrun, the town's aging World War II and Vietnam veterans are forced to confront the return of an ideology they once fought to destroy. What begins as an intimate love story explodes into a sweeping, blood-soaked battle for the soul of a town. Now in color for the first time. Yeah, I think that newsprint, I was just talking to someone the other day. I was like, can you print it on newsprint and make it less expensive? And they were like, nope, actually newsprint, like specifically actual old school newsprint, is, they don't make it anymore, so it's more expensive to get. You've heard Love is a Battlefield. Have you heard that? Also, they have got a new Marvel Premiere collection that you probably should want. Punisher, Welcome Back, Frank, which has all the really good stuff. Well, some of the really good stuff from Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, which is Frank being very Frank. This one's super fun. Avatar Bioluminescent Coloring Book. Super fun coloring. Dark Knights of Steel All Winter. Some nice standalone stories from the Dark Knights of Steel universe. This awesome book from Mad Cave, Flow. I'm going to read this one because you might not have known this one either. It said, when blood began to run down Dana Lund's legs at nature camp, she thought she was dying. Homeschooled by a protective dad after her mom's mysterious death, Dara wasn't told the facts of life. It's the curse, her bunkmate said, not revealing what it really was. But we can lift it if you do everything we say. So began their week of torment, making naive Dara do torturous tasks for their amusement. But now, 10 years later, as they embark on their careers, the three tormentors find themselves cursed. So they reunite to track down the likely source, a vengeful Dara, and they'll pursue her to the bloody end. This is bullies being bullies, even as grown-ups. Isn't that nice? Hopefully they get theirs in the end. Oh, I got 2 All Winters up here. You can get Batman, Superman's World's Finest. This is volume 8 of that awesome long-running series. Oops. Did I miss something on the side? Oh, these are just my things. And I think that's all I have. Oh, this thing over here? Yeah, this is a box from Scout Comics from Vlad Dracula. So it's like a bunch of books all together in a box. I just like putting cool things behind me, always available. All right, so just know that now's your time to go and make sure you tell your local comic shop about what you would like to have. You notice that I don't have Tigress Island. You know why that is? We didn't order it because no one told us they wanted it. They didn't watch FOC show. Cry. I'm not lying to you. This has been true for the last 3 weeks, that no one has asked us for the books that everyone else on FOC show said those were going to be the big books. So make sure you pay attention to it. Tell us what you want. We'll make sure to order it. And it's the same for your LCS. They are most assuredly not hiding those hot books in their back rooms. They probably got 2 copies for the 2 pull lists that have it, and that was it, because that's what they got asked for. So information is king. Information is king, and we're giving you all the information you need to never be left behind. By the way, this week on FOC was the second print of number 1 for Tigress Island, because it had already sold out after FOC when it was offered 3 weeks ago. So just know it's not your LCS not be able to figure it out. We just need to know 3 weeks before the book's release so we can actually order it too.
Miss Jen, I got a question for you, because I've been thinking about this.
Sure.
Have you, as a comic shop owner, ever seen something like this before, where we just had, feels like 4 or 5 weeks in a row where there's just one book that just takes off?
Yeah, I think this is so this is a cautionary tale. We've got time to talk about this, because I've seen stuff kind of happen like this back in the 90s, in which all of a sudden people started making the collectability or the flipping nature of a book be way more important than the actual book content. No one was reading anything, but they were buying 10 or 20 copies of things. This was back when stores would carry, a bunch of copies for the rack and let you buy as many as you wanted, because they were like, woo, I made my money, we're done. Now we're living in a generation where I want to create readers that want to read more than just the issue 1, because the danger here is that everybody says all of a sudden that Dork is like the hot book, right? And goes and buys a whole bunch of copies of number 1. And then the store buys kind of like, usually you think you're going to sell at least half of whatever you sold of number 1. And they order that, but then no one comes back for number 2 because they've moved on to the next whatever speculation book there is. We end up with a problem where your store is now 3 weeks into trying to buy those speculator books for you, in the hope that you'll come in for those. And then that money is stuck in those books that aren't being bought. And this is a cycle that gets really bad. That's when you talk about like when the speculation era like destroyed the comic book market for a little while. That's what happened. It was that rotation of, we bought too many books we thought people wanted because the first book was really hot, but and we had to order. Sometimes store owners have to order number 2s of books before we see them hit the racks for number 1. That's just because like sometimes number 2s have got like poly bags or something. That means they have to get made much earlier. And so they cut off our orders earlier in the cycle than like normally we have it release. We've seen it for a week and we can make orders because we have to make them 3 weeks out, right? Boop, boop, boop. So if you have that shortened even by a week, then we're ordering a book number 2 it closes on Monday. We don't see sales for book number 1 until Wednesday. So we don't know. We're completely guessing. So guessing. And then the other problem we run into is that people start getting frustrated because they'll buy those speculation books. People speculate it'll be worth the hype books, that they'll buy them at their high. But then what they don't realize is that most modern books, there's some exceptions, like Absolute Batman number 1 finally got hot, right? And selling for good money. But most of the time you end up with like those kinds of books that'll go way high and then they'll track back down, maybe even that very first week to kind of like where they should be. So you'll see books shoot up to like 40 or 50, 60 bucks. And then really for its rarity and stuff, it's probably a $20 book. So this is a cautionary tale for me. If you really want to read a book that you're like, ooh, that sounded really good, wait for its second print or a third print, or wait until the market recenters before you go out and spend a whole bunch of money, because putting $50 or $60 into one book means you can't read a bunch of books for that week. So just be smart about your dollars. Thank you for supporting those people. I know that Brett Bean really appreciates the hype for his book, and I know he'll be very happy if you show up at comic book stores and buy number 2, because that's really where the success of something is. Doesn't matter if number 1 sells 100,000 copies. If no one comes and buys issue number 2, it doesn't work. So there you go. That answers your question, I hope.
Or instead of buying a second or third printing, watch the FOC show with me and Matthias every Friday, and we'll tell you what to call your shop and order.
We said all these things so many times, Kyle. We'd said them over and over.
Yeah. I know. I was sitting here eating ice cream.
But I was, I've been saying on a couple of the shows that I've been on, they've asked about it. And I said, the thing to me is a third print reads exactly the same as a first print. So as long as I can read the book, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Well, and let's dirty little secret thing. Sometimes the third prints are really low print runs, and 10 or 15 years later, the third prints are worth a mountain of money because there's only a couple thousand of them. So, get the book, read it, love it, enjoy it, hold on to it, and then in 10 or 15 years, sell the third print so you can buy 50 or 60 different comics.
Right. So if you want to go get a copy of Tigress Island this week and your LCS will sell it to you for cover price, great. If not, ask them if you can claim one of the second prints they probably already ordered on Monday. Or there might be still some available to order in the system. And then you'll get to read it, and then you'll get to enjoy it before number 2 comes out, add it to your pull box. I hear it's very adult, so just be aware. Yep, Something's Killing the Children, 5th print, number 1. That's the way it is. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to come pop back on here right after the show, and I'll be selling all the books I just showed you, and I've got some really killer deals on my board afterwards. Sounds like dumb fun, super fun. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining this show. Please share it with your friends if you think they'll find it to be informative and useful. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.